is the Athletic Football Show.
Welcome to the Athletic Football Show.
Yeah.
I'm Robert Mays, and joining me tonight is my good friend, Nate Tice. Nate, how you doing, buddy?
You know I love some schlock. That was king schlock. That was
unspeakably bad.
That was bad. That was like really bad. That was Catwoman Halle Berry level bad. Like that was like some bad ball being played. Entertaining though. Very entertaining night for football Twitter and everybody else watching that game on Amazon Prime.
When you consider the preseason expectations for these teams, and this is not just us, we're getting so much shit about the Colts and pumping up the Colts. The Colts had an over-under of 9.5 coming into this season. They were a minus 170 favorite to win the AFC South, okay? The Broncos were a trendy playoff team. The Broncos gave Russell Wilson a $250 million contract after trading multiple first-round picks and a lot more to go get him. When you think about the expectations both of these teams had coming into the season, you could absolutely make an argument that that was the worst football game I have ever seen in my entire life. We've seen bad games.
Yeah.
The 9-6 Cardinals Seahawks game. And
yeah.
I mean, I've watched some awful games in the rain. Remember that one Monday night game, like 15 or 20 years ago, where the ball stuck into the ground? I think it was the Dolphins. It's Dolphins Steelers, wasn't it?
Steelers, yeah. It was that
the Steelers were involved, and that game was awful.
They were.
But when you think about, again, the quarterbacks at play here and what these teams were supposed to be coming into the season, it's one of the worst games I've ever watched in my entire life. My first question that I would pose to you, outside of all of us who had to watch that, who should feel worse after that game is over? Should it be Colts fans or Broncos fans?
I think Broncos fans.
I think so too.
Look at that contract. Look at the first round picks gone. Like that's some dread that's hanging over that team. At least like Al Michaels of all people in the third quarter was going like, well, at least the Colts only gave up a couple third rounders or like whatever he was saying, which was hilarious that he was already talking about how much these teams gave up for these guys in a bad way, not in a good way.
Look at all the things that happened over the second half of that game when it came to the commentary and some of the moments. Al Michaels is talking about what both teams gave up to get their quarterbacks. Yeah. They showed Peyton Manning. Like Peyton Manning was like a huge selling point for the game. I joked with Sando earlier this week that they were going to try to sell us the game by saying Peyton Manning played for both of these teams. They actually did it multiple times. Mm-hmm. Fans walked out at the start of overtime during a tie game.
Insane. Which is insane.
I don't blame them at all. If I were a fan of that team and I'm watching what is unfolding in front of me, I would walk the hell out. I could not imagine. You come into the year, you traded for Russell Wilson, you've done all of this, and that is the product that is on display at home in prime time for the entire country to see. You paid money to sit in those seats. The Waltons paid $4.5 billion for that team.
They're watching their crowd leave underneath them going, oh boy, quarterback is throwing a pick in the end zone when they're going for the jugular. The no, you take it fourth down timeouts was very entertaining, by the way.
Oh
like both teams but that one was funny. I was like, oh, Broncos are just for sure trying to bait them here. And it was just like, oh no, they took a timeout as well. It was truly like, oh God, what do we call? Like it's just.
Did you see Rosberg in the booth? The guy that they hired to be their special decisions specialist was sitting up there, and he was clearly frustrated about what was going on because it's frustrating.
It is. It feels frustrating. And just, oh my God, I don't even know where to start with it because like, I love that you brought that up, that it's like the expectations for these teams. That's what makes it worse. Like next week we got Bears Commanders. We know what we're getting with that. Like we know at least we know the bar.
We do, my friend. We certainly do.
Can't wait. Al Michaels couldn't wait. He was like, oh yeah, right. We're ready for that game. He's like just so over these games. He's like, I got the Sunday Night Football slate for the last 10-ish years. Now I have to.
They pulled the rug out from under us because we got Chiefs Chargers in week 2 for these games, and now we got all of these games Thursday night coming in a row. A good job by Amazon. They gave us a little taste, and now we're hooked. So you have this Broncos team now. I don't know where to start with him. Okay. Yeah. On the last interception, he has the pick play rub route to the right side against man coverage on the goal line. It's wide open. Slams wide open for a touchdown. He doesn't even look at it.
Nope.
The pick he threw deep down the middle of the field, I tweeted out the video of it on the All 22 from the Next Gen broadcast. No idea. Like, absolutely no idea. He missed Judy on a slot fade near the goal line that easily could have been a touchdown. He missed 5 other throws. He feels irreparably broken. And I don't know if that's an overreaction or an overstatement based on how he's played over the first 5 weeks. Can you find any morsel here that fans of the Broncos or people who want Russell Wilson to succeed should latch onto?
Well, and that's what's frustrating is that, yes, we're joking about like, oh, the no, you take it 4th down decision and everything. But the stuff that they do call that's decent. There was like a 3rd and extra long, and they ran like a 3-man route, and he checked it down right away. And they had a backside dig that was wide open against cover 2. He's not even trying to let stuff develop. He is so quick to just look to check down. And it's almost anytime they're 3rd and 7 or deeper, they're kind of screwed because he is not even willing to push it. He's playing ball to not make a mistake. He doesn't have any confidence. And it's weird. It's really weird to see a guy that will push the ball back in the day. Their best play tonight, other than some screens and running the ball that late in the game, was a play where they basically threw a 500 ball. By the way, people from Florida are saying that's called jackpot, which I never knew. But they threw a 500. Yeah, I know.
500.
Yeah, 500.
500.
Yeah, I know. But he threw a 500 ball where they had 2 guys in the same spot and a ref like tackled a defender.
Yes.
Like that was their best play.
Plus screens. They had like 2 or 3 screens. That was their passing game tonight. And then Judy getting wide open up the right sideline in that last drive. That was their passing game.
And they had another deep ball, which is what Russ is supposed to be great at. He's a great moon ball thrower. The rookie safety from the Colts, I'm blanking on his name, from Yale, who's actually has had several standout moments this last few weeks. He knocks the ball from Judy, and why he's able to make a play was Russ took an extra hitch and then he lobbed it. He had no kind of willingness to. You're not going to drive that throw, but you kind of throw like a looping liner.
Well, like kind of like to the sideline, and that's a huge completion instead of pushing upfield for no reason.
No reason. It's a lot of like don't make a mistake plays, and I get even on that last play, like okay, yes, you want to go to Cortland Sutton, like you want to go to your dude, but it was so unquestionably man coverage. They weren't even trying to disguise it, and they brought 5. They didn't have no hole defender sitting in the middle, and that is as clean as a read as possible. It was a high-low basically working. They had a tight end working across to create the high-low. It's a classic kind of zone or red zone play, and they run the switch play onto the other field, and also it's wide open. You just throw to slant or inside fade. You pick one, and that's what you want to throw against man coverage. It's what it's designed to be, and he's not doing it. And on top of it, like the other red zone play where he threw the pick, where they're going for the jugular. Well, I will get into the design on this one because they give a flash fake for some reason. So they give a flash fake. So that makes Russ late. And then on top of it, Russ throws it late because he takes an extra bounce because he's not confident in ripping it. It's really tight in the red zone. Remember, we just talked about Geno Smith on our show today about how confident he's playing because he's ripping these throws.
It's a great contrast.
Right as his foot hits the ground, he's ripping those throws. That's why it's so hard to complete these balls in the red zone, because if you're a second late, that ball's behind and it gets picked by Gilmore, who's undercutting. That is the game of inches. We think of it as like running for a first down or anything. That's the game of inches, is not taking that extra hitch because you're not confident in throwing it. And that's what he's not confident in throwing anything. Nothing comes out on time. He's always going to throw if they run a high low, he's always throwing the low. He's playing ball that's not to make a mistake, which is not, dude, it's they don't pay you the big bucks to not make a mistake. It's to push the ball and make these hero throws. And he's just not willing to do it.
I tweeted it out as a joke, but only half jokingly as the game was winding up. Russell Wilson, if the Broncos tried to move on from him after the season, has $107 million in dead money left on his deal.
Oh, no, they're locked in.
If they try to move on after the 2023 season, he has $85 million in dead money left on his deal.
It's like the Jimbo Fisher buyout. Like,
he's their quarterback.
Yeah.
This is it. Mm-hmm. And if this doesn't get better, we are looking at a historically bad move, a historically bad transaction, a historically bad gamble if this continues down this road. And I don't know, was there any reason to think it'd be this bad? No. He had some bad moments when he came back from the thumb last year, but by the time the end of the season came around, he looked okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nothing that would lead you to believe he would look this bad over the first 5 games of the season. And you'd almost have to think it gets better than this. But if it doesn't, this is the type of thing that could sink an entire franchise.
Yes.
What they just did.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of people are attached to this. And that, I was a little hesitant when this deal happened and people were like, oh my God, this makes the Broncos contenders. But I kind of figured Russ wouldn't age well because of how much he relies on his creation, but I didn't think it'd be a fall off a cliff.
No.
I thought it'd be in 2 years from now. And then year 3 of this contract, then okay, maybe, oh geez, okay, now we're getting a little worried, but not like this. And yeah, and I've a couple of people have brought it up and they've tagged me in it. And I was usually talking about Baker when I would say this. I would say Baker Mayfield is Russ without the athleticism. Well, now Russ isn't doing the Russ things, and that's what it kind of looks like at times. He's late, his feet are happy, he's shelling up, he's not pushing the ball, he's airmailing throws. It's everything looks just disjointed. And that's the thing is has Nathaniel Hackett's stuff been great? I would say great. It's been fine though. I honestly, you look at the run.
There are guys open.
There's guys open. It's not all on the coach. Yes, the decision making and all that. Those false starts are because his cadence is so disjointed because he's hesitating. That's why they get so many false starts. Yes, sometimes his offensive line get antsy, but a lot of those false starts are on Russ because he's going blue 80, and then he hesitates because he's looking what the coverage is because he's hesitant. Everything he's taking that extra second to confirm. This is a guy with 100 something starts. He's got a lot of games under his belt, so it feels very disjointed. And I don't know. I thought there'd be some signs of life tonight, especially against a team that will give you throws in the passing game by design, just how Gus Bradley wants to run a defense. And they weren't hitting anything because he's not willing to push it.
They lost to a team that at multiple points throughout that game, my prevailing thought about the Colts was this might be the worst team in the league. With the way the Colts are playing right now, they might be the worst team in the league. Matt Ryan was pressured on 44% of his dropbacks in this game.
He can't get the ball off, dude.
21 of 47 dropbacks. Okay. Matt Ryan didn't play well. We can get to that. But their biggest issue right now starts up front. We can talk about this with a little more nuance. I think their biggest issue starts up front. Okay.
Yes.
We have Matt Pryor at left tackle for the first 4 games of the season. Matt Pryor is a journeyman left tackle. He was available for nothing. He has never been a long-term starter in the NFL, and that's for good reason. The Colts were comfortable saying, you are our starting left tackle to start the year. They get Bernard Raymond back, who is a 3rd-round rookie.
Yep.
They put him in at left tackle in this game. They put Matt Pryor at right tackle, and they slide Braden Smith, who is one of the highest-paid right tackles in the NFL, into guard. So in the process, they've made themselves considerably worse at both tackles while gaining a marginal upgrade at right guard by making these moves and removing Danny Pinter from the equation, and Will Freeze or Fries or whatever his name is played last week. It doesn't matter. Is the point here?
Insert name.
Insert right guard here.
Yeah.
Then Pinter has to come back into this game because Ryan Kelly gets hurt.
Yep.
Anyway, the tackles in this game were unplayable.
Yep.
Unplayable.
Yep.
No matter who was rushing. Baron Browning looks
really
God. Interesting, by the way.
Yes.
And I was kind of annoyed because the first couple drives of the game, he didn't do anything. There weren't sacks, but the bend he was showing, this is really interesting. If he's going to be this explosive and he's going to look this flexible with that ankle flexion you see from a Vaughn or a Micah Parsons, it's this gets interesting in a hurry. And then he exploded. If the Broncos won this game, we'd be talking about Baron Browning first and foremost, and not everything.
Wow, look at them hit on another pass rusher. Yeah,
yes,
I know, exactly.
He looked awesome, but it didn't matter who it was. They couldn't block anybody. Those guys were helpless out there. And this is it. There are no reinforcements coming. This is the line that they have chosen with the players on the roster. Everyone is back healthy now, and this is what's happening. They can't block anybody, and that is compounded by the fact that no one is open. No one is open. And it is wild to watch just how dead in the water they are pretty much every single time they throw the football.
Yep. Everything just feels tight. And that's the thing is Matt Ryan can't get to 2 or 3 because he's dead. That's the thing. He's picking one, Matt Ryan's a quick processor. So he's finding what he thinks is the best read. He's dead if that's not open. And guess what? Those guys aren't winning. That's why you see a lot of the tight ends Jelani Woods or Mo Alley Cox or even Alec Pierce tonight at receiver. Good job, Alec Pierce, by the way. But those guys are bodying up dudes because they're covered. And Matt Ryan can't find a better choice because he can't get the 2 or 3. And God, and it's not like the run game. It's not like where they can just go, well, they're some stiff athletes. So we'll, stiff dudes. So we'll just run the ball and just road grade some people. And then, only throw it 24 times. They can't even run the ball. And I get it. Nyheim Hines is out, but it's not like they can just lean on that.
They couldn't run the ball last week. When Jonathan Taylor was playing last week, they couldn't run the ball. They had like a 13% rush success rating last week against the Titans defense. Not exactly the 85 Bears over there now. So it doesn't really matter. They can't do anything because it starts up front and it's compounded by the fact that no one is getting open. So we just had a pretty existential conversation, like staring into the abyss about the Broncos. Let's stare into the abyss about the Colts. Yeah. Because this is seriously something I thought about at one point during that game. It's like, if they could be bad enough that they could be in contention to get the number 1 pick in the draft. That's how bad they look right now. And my biggest concern about the Colts was not, would they be the worst team in the league? It was, are they just going to be in this cycle of mediocrity where they're 8 to 10 win team,
a lot of 7 and 10s, 9 and 8.
Yeah. Just like they hover around 500, sneak into the playoffs in a bad division, which is we thought the AFC South would be. But then you get there, and it's like, okay, now what? Like, how are you going to get there? And they might be so bad that they could be taking themselves off of that treadmill of mediocrity and put themselves in position to go draft a quarterback in the top 5. But if that's the case, if you're going to be bad enough to have a top 5 pick, what does that say about the people in charge? And are they going to be the ones that oversee whatever that reset looks like based on how bad this seems to be trending?
And that's the thing too, is that up until the season, I consider Frank Reich one of the better play callers in the league and play designers.
I did too.
And it's like,
he's done a good job. They were a borderline top 10 to 12 offense with a different quarterback over the last 2 years. Let's not rewrite this. Carson Wentz was bad last year. I think the Colts did a good job putting that offense in decent spots. By the end of the season with Phillip Rivers in his first year as a starter, they were top 10 in offensive DVOA. This is not revisionist history with what Frank Reich has done as an offensive coach. But right now, it looks broken. And I just don't know how you get better than this, because when you're that bad up front, it's really, really hard to get anything else going, because it's the precursor to anything else you could do on offense.
Yeah, you can't.
At least they could run the ball last year. Their left tackle situation and their pass protection was often spotty last season. Quentin Nelson was hurt. There were reasons why the line wasn't as good as it used to be, but it could still do some stuff. They can't do anything right now.
There's no easy button. And that, like, going into this year, even the first couple of weeks and like even the Jaguars game and then the following week was against the Chiefs, I'm watching this team and I was getting kind of worried because the mistakes they're making. So it's not even the talent level issue. It was just that they looked inept as far as how they're pointing things out. The Jaguars were gaming them up just with simple pressures or simple games where Kelly, who's a veteran with a lot of starts, and they have the same offensive line coach. I've made this point on the show and I wrote about it, was that this shouldn't be happening. These aren't like exotic looks that you're getting. This is simple. Oh my God, the safety's rotating over here. We're going to change the protection over here. And I was trying to figure out what the battery was between Kelly and Matt Ryan. I was trying to figure out, all right, is Matt Ryan kind of letting him do this? And then he's not, because didn't really seem to be repointing anything. So letting them do it. Jaguars game, they couldn't even get the ball off and that's why they got skunked, was because of that, because they couldn't even get the ball off because the center wasn't going in the right direction. So I'm like, okay, this is a little worrisome because you're about to go against Spags. And sure enough, Spags had a freaking field day against it. Just, oh my God, at least 7 free runners I could think of in that game. And free runners is not like, sometimes you want to throw hot and it's okay. You do not want to live in that world. And it's not by design. It wasn't like they were like, oh, we'll just throw this quick play. No, they're trying to block this up and they're missing on it. So that's like saying to me, it's like, what is going on? Like, so it's already the talent issue, but now you guys can't even function. And that's where I'm with you. That's like, what? And then you look at the defense. And I like Grover Stewart. I like DeForest Buckner, but it's a lot of like good to very good players as opposed to these freaking dudes, where you're like, okay, that's a star. That's a star. That's a star. Okay, we can retool the offense to do this, and that. And we've made jokes that the Colts always have a lot of guys that we kind of like oh, Naheem Hines, we have Grover Stewart, like those type of guys. Okay, our little guys. But what else you got? Like, if this is your team, this was kind of a push year. You don't trade for Matt Ryan thinking, okay, this is our goal to go 9-8. Yeah, haha. Like, their goal is to, maybe go 11-6, have a good solid year, maybe win a playoff game. But no, it's like you said, it looks bad. They can't even function as an offense, and this defense is doing an okay job, believe it or not. But this defense is not a bunch of stars. It's more like just stop the run and hold on to your hat against the pass.
Yeah, I mean, they just have forgettable players. And I understand that Shaq Leonard is hurt. I understand that Julian Blackmon is hurt. But that's not the difference in all of this. And the offense there are no such excuses on the offensive side of the ball. I know Kelly left this game, but it's not like they're ravaged by injuries outside of Jonathan Taylor. And they looked awful with Jonathan Taylor for the last few weeks. So there are no excuses here for why. Yes. There are no excuses for why they look this bad. And I just did not expect the bottom to fall out like this.
No.
And Matt Ryan is certainly not the number one piece to blame, but he's also not playing well. And his arm looks cooked. I mean, he's one hop and throws outside the numbers. He's having to put everything into some of these. And both picks he threw were pretty ugly. Well defended. I think both of those plays, a really good job by the Broncos defense. Patrick Surtain did a really, really nice job on. I mean, they were in zone coverage.
He's so freaking good, man. It's so much fun watching him.
He's great. It was a 1x3. It was a 1x3 with the tight end as the single receiver. They were, I believe, in cover 3. So he was locked onto the tight end. He is over the ball, right in the middle of the field on him. Ryan thought he could come back to it, not there. And then Stearns, he just never saw him. He came back to it because no one else was open. I don't understand why he didn't throw the quick speed out to Pittman, because he was looking that way and he was open. He did not go that way. And I just don't know why. And it just feels like when you're running for your life and when everything is crumbling around you, you start to not trust even the decisions you should be making.
That's what I love about the Prime Vision, the channel there, is watching the All 22 live.
It's amazing.
And it's great because I can, sometimes you don't know where their eyes is going just because from the angle, but I can tell kind of like, okay, coverage wise, you should be going this way. Why is the ball?
Well, the replay showed that he was looking to his left.
No, I'm just saying, but like a lot of these plays, it's like, Matt, why are you going over there? Like, why? And it's just because he's so sped up that he's like, I'm going to the safest option on these routes. And on my everywhere I can go, I'm going to the safest one, the one where I have the least, least friction to victory here. I want to talk about one Surtain play. It was pretty awesome. They showed a replay of it. Alec Pierce had a great game, but so he's covering. So Surtain, I knew Pierce is getting some respect when they were like, okay, put Surtain on him. Like, okay, so he's covering him, and Pierce turns a little bit like a battleship. He's a tall guy. So he's breaking down to break in. And so he just barely lowers his shoulders. Surtain's trailing him and just cuts inside. And it was so freaking cool to watch a guy when they say run a route for him. It was so cool to watch it on the replay. Herbstreit and Al Michaels were kind of hanging out, so they didn't really say anything about it. But they showed the zoomed in replay on it. I was like, oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. Shout out to Caden Stearns too, by the way. He had a good game as well. The safety for the Broncos.
That second pick was all him, because they were traditional stuff we see from this tree all the time. They're in a quarters look before the ball is snapped. The safety buzzes down into cover 3, and with the play that they were running was a high-low over the middle, and Paris Campbell was running the low, and Pittman was running the low, and Campbell was running the high.
Yep.
And rather than get pulled with the deep over, which is what they want, so they can hit Campbell underneath, he lets it go to the post safety. Doesn't even react to it whatsoever. Drives down on the ball and makes an interception. It's a good player. I thought he showed as a rookie. I thought he flashed as a rookie and did some decent stuff. And the fact that Justin Simmons isn't even playing for this team and their defense has looked okay, I think says a lot about Caden Stearns. So we're shouting out Baron Browning and Caden Stearns, like guys that are playing well for this team. It's not just a total schlock fest, but for the most part, this game and tonight is defined by the failed expectations that these teams had coming into the season and what this ultimately means for them moving forward. For the Broncos, navigating this is going to be treacherous.
Yeah.
If it continues in this way, I just don't know. You're underwater. That's exactly what it feels like. It's just that the boat is sinking and there is very little recourse unless something drastically changes. Unless there is a helicopter that comes in here that is like some different version of Russell Wilson, then we're going to continue going this way. With the Colts, it doesn't feel quite as mortifying and devastating because you didn't give up all of this. But it's also like, what are we?
Yeah.
Like
what are you retooling? You're rebuilding? Like what's your next step? Both of these teams, it's what is your next step? Like, because whatever you're doing right now is honestly not working.
Well, the Broncos have a lot more good young players than the Colts do, right? Like you watch Baron Browning play, you watch Patrick Surtain play. I think the Broncos have some pieces. It's just that the quarterback was supposed to be maybe the final piece. And now the quarterback is playing so bad that it's tearing everything else down. The Colts were supposed to be in this situation where everything else lifted the quarterback up. And that's why 36-year-old Matt Ryan could potentially be an answer for them. And now there's nothing. Everything is just crumbling. And if the entire roster crumbles, it's like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Like what are you like? And where do you go from here? If you are picking in the top 5 or the top 10, it's wild. I just did not expect to be here with either of these teams. Even if you were relatively down on the Colts, I don't think many people envision them potentially being the worst team in the league through the first 5 weeks. And that's what they looked like over the first month. And tonight did nothing to change that. They looked not even barely. They are not functional on offense right now.
No,
and
they aren't.
It's shocking to watch.
It really is. And it's not, and again, it's people were going to say, oh, Jonathan Taylor's out. It didn't matter when Jonathan Taylor was in. It is not when he's been healthy the last few weeks. It didn't matter. That's honestly their best player on offense, but it didn't matter. Like everything looks inept with them. And that's the thing is when we were talking about in the preseason, we kept saying, it was like, okay, the ceiling might not be real high, but man, this floor is pretty good for them. Like, but the floor looks, like you said, it looks like top 5. Like, and that's crazy to me, that's not the flavor of this team going into this season. And the fact that we're starting October and it feels just dire. And like you said, it just doesn't feel like there's nothing that we could say. Like there's nothing that we can just point at and go like, okay, they have to fix this one thing. Just the whole thing just feels rough.
It feels rotten. And I just don't know how you fix rotten. And even if you think that there's going to be incremental improvements because it's a new quarterback again and they've started slow, this feels very, very different to what it felt like over the last couple of years. Because even if you're working Eric Fisher back early last season, it's like, oh, well, we'll get there. And you feel like you're working through something. That's not this. You're not working through much here. They've looked so much worse than they did over the first month of the last couple of years. And there just doesn't feel like there's anything waiting around the corner the same way there was when Rivers was there, when they had arguably the best offensive line in the league. Things have deteriorated so much for them on that side of the ball that we're headed down a pretty dark road, I think.
It's pretty funny, but both these teams, like the Colts have the most expensive offensive line, which looks like crap. And then Russ is getting paid a ton of money for the Broncos, and that looks pretty bad as well.
That's what this is.
This
is what happens when a disconnect forms between the way that you've spent your resources and how you built your team and what the on-field product actually looks like. And when that disconnect is so big, that's something that chasm, you can't clear it. You can't jump over it. And that's what both of these teams are right now.
Two most important spots in football, O-line and quarterback. And they both have John Wall contracts. That's what it feels like, or Russell Westbrook contracts. That's what both of these teams feel like they have going on right now.
And to make matters worse for the Broncos, worth mentioning, their left tackle was carted off the field today.
Yes.
They have so many, and just another thing that they're going to have to worry about now moving forward.
That was the play, Mrs. Lincoln. No, but I do want to know. I want to give props to Terry McCauley for sticking his chest out when he has all the film reviews. Like I do want to give some props to somebody tonight, and that's the ref and the analyst for Prime right now, because he actually was going, "That's a bad call there. It should be this, and that." With his chest, he was prompt. So I do want to give him a little shout out, because I rag on, especially Gene, who doesn't want to make any decision when he's like on air. So I do want to give a shout out to Terry. So that's my one takeaway, my one positive, anyways, from tonight.
And we're gonna get to, if this continues for the rest of the season, and there's no reason to start doing this shit now, but it's October 6th. If this continues for the rest of the season, there are going to be some pretty hard conversations, I think, to be had in both of these places, and just not where I think most people expected that to be 5 weeks into the year. And that's where we are. All right. Well, at least we get a great game next weekend. At least we get a great game next Thursday. We will be back here doing the same thing again next Thursday night. We've got plenty until then, though.
Go Mariners.
We have our Sunday night recap show, which we will be doing live on YouTube. We do it every single week. If you guys are new to the show, please come join us Sunday night around 11:30 Eastern, whenever the Sunday night game kind of wraps up. Me and Nate do that every single week. Also, just a heads up, me and Deontay do the Monday Hangover every single Monday on our YouTube channel at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you have not watched our Week 5 preview show with me and Nate and Deontay, we talked about Bengals Ravens, talked about what the Rams offense might have to do against the Cowboys pass rush, chatted a little bit about what Geno Smith has been doing, which that's an entire another layer to this conversation. Is the Seahawks getting all of that for Russell Wilson and then upgrading a quarterback in a substantial way, which is insane. But that's what's happened so far. Yeah. So we talked a lot about Geno, chatted about why the Giants have been able to form a functional NFL offense. Contrast that with where the Colts are right now. It's kind of funny. So a lot of stuff we're digging into. Please go check that out if you have not. We will be back on Sunday nights. Until then, really appreciate you guys listening. We'll talk to you soon.